I've been training artists for over 20 years to be professional.
I'm old, if you can't tell.
But over that course of time, I've gotten the same question over and over again. This is the biggest question that everybody has, and also was the biggest question I had when I was training, and that's what should I be doing? What should I be practicing? What do I need to do to be a great artist? What do I need to do to make it? And there's a lot of different aspects to that, but the simple answer is it depends. And I need to break that down for you. There's a reason why the answer is it depends. And I want to go through all that with you. So let's take a look. Okay, let's start going through this list. Now, I want to say off the bat that regardless of where you're coming from, this will apply to you. If you're a 3D artist, 2D artist, if you're an animator, whatever, this is going to apply to you. This is about how to get better and how to progress. So just keep that in mind, okay? Let's start with the first one. The first concept is about defining your goals. Now, this is something that every student I've had, everybody that I've been training to be a professional, like they've not defined their goals. A lot of times they just come in and they say, I don't know. I just want to be great at painting, or I just want to do this. And that's not going to help you progress. If you're not setting where the bullseye is, it's going to be very, very difficult. So just in general, you have to say, what do I want to do? What do I want to achieve? For some people, that's a certain kind of a goal, like I want to work at this company, right? I want to work for Blizzard, or I want to, Epic Games. I want to be a concept artist at Epic Games. That's good. Like, that's very good. I think that's a way to do it. What I will tell you is, as you're defining those goals, you should research things, because it's the day-to-day that's really going to dictate whether you like it or not. So in other words, here's an example. Let's say you're a concept artist with like a big game company, right? But you've got to drive, through traffic 45 minutes a day to get there. And then you get there and it's still an office job. And then you're still going to have demands on you from an art director. And you might get there and they might say, hey, we need 12 different versions of this fern that goes in the game. And I need you to make 12 ferns. And then after that, I need you to do this, like this texture panel or whatever, and it's real boring. Like, there's stuff that's going to be boring, and there's stuff, in every job, that's the way it is. And everything you're doing, that's the way it's going to be. But when you decide on what your goal is, definitely don't have a pie in the sky kind of thing in your mind. Like, oh, it's going to be dreamy and I'll be able to work on all the biggest projects and I'll always have something interesting. Just know it's not going to necessarily always be like that. Doesn't mean it's not fulfilling. Doesn't mean it's not what you want to do, but you just need to know there's a reality in those things. And it's like, are you going to work for a game company that like moves frequently, right? Would you be willing to move every 3 or 4 years if they pick up shop and move? Or there's just, you need to look at the reality of where you've set that goal. And like, so for me, like for a while I was a fine artist, and then I switched to illustration. I'm doing some animation now and stuff. But when I was a fine artist, like there's a reality where I have to like ship paintings. I have to like frame paintings, ship paintings, like go to these painting shows and like talk to the patrons that want to buy the paintings and stuff like that. I would have to do all these things, like stretch canvas and just like clean my brushes and do all these things. Like, not that was that bad. I didn't, it's fine. That's okay. But those things would be good to know. If you're setting a goal, you need to do some research to see what you're getting yourself into, because a lot of times people don't do that research. And how do you do that research, right? You can look it up, but you can also talk to a lot of the artists that are doing it. If you just meet them at an expo or even a lot of times you can just write artists. They don't mind. Everybody thinks they can't. Like, a lot of times they don't hear from people very often. Nobody really emails an artist and says, hey, what's it like to have your job? You may or may not hear back from them. I mean, we're artists after all, but do some research, figure out what it's like. If you don't know where you're headed, you're just going to get lost. Like, that's the truth. After you define those goals, the second thing is pick a very clear direction. So let's say that you want to be a children's illustrator, right? You want to be an illustrator. You say, I want to do children's books. I want to do the covers, right? Is that good enough, right? Well, kind of. It's not. It's good, but if you can be more specific, it will actually help you quite a bit more. And I'll explain more later. But basically, if you say, I want to be a children's illustrator, right? Then I'll say, okay, what age group do you want to illustrate for? You say, I don't know. Well, if you want to do more cute art that's a little bit more simple, cute, bubbly, that kind of thing. It might be for a younger age, right? And then this is the other thing too. When you go to the publisher, if you're very specific about what you do, you can say, I'm a children's illustrator. I, have a quirky and cute style. And it's like slightly dark, but not dark in like a scary way. It's just like, it's like Lemony Snicket, like kind of a way or something like that. And I'm targeting like 7 to 12-year-olds. And I have a style that's like it's very painterly and things like that. Like if you have all those specifics, it's a lot easier for an agent or for the publisher to understand where to put you and what books to put you on and what opportunities to give you. So it's not that you'll be limited there. It's not that you'll always have to stay there. So a lot of students will ask that, like if you choose a direction, am I stuck there forever? Well, no, you're not stuck there forever. But once you get your skill set and once you start working professionally and you start building your portfolio, you can start branching out. You can definitely start branching out. But it's nice to have that basis where you have more of an understandable identity and a marketable identity. Like, and as much as we hate to say it as artists, like you have to be able to have jobs and you have to be able to get those jobs and be able to do that. Now, I did fine art originally, and then I shifted into illustration, and now I'm doing a little bit of animation. So I'm sort of a hypocrite in that regard. But I did do fine art for like 15 years, and that's where I got my base. I'm proof that you can start by really building up an area and doing well in it. And then you can also pivot later once you have that skill set, and you can do it slowly. You can do it over a course of time that will allow you to do that. So, but yeah, you've got to pick a direction, but you need to be very specific, right? And that's if you want to be an illustrator, concept artist, if you want to be a 3D artist, right? Are you a 3D animator? Are you primarily a modeler? Are you, a texture person? Are you like in Blender, like messing with geometry nodes? Like, is that your thing, right? I mean, and you can, of course, you can do all those things, but really, if the more you specialize, the more you can find somewhere to fit in, and then you can learn all the other stuff. So just be really, really good at that one thing, and there's a lot of power in that, okay? You need to figure out what you need to do to succeed and get to that goal, right? So let's go back to the children's illustration thing, right? So if you want to get an agent or you want to work with a publisher, what do you need to have in order to get to that, like for that publisher to take you serious or to work with you or the agent to represent you and stuff like that? What do you need? And so in that situation, I would probably tell people, well, listen, you need 8 to 12 really good cohesive illustrations in the style that you're representing that are really well done, and I would mock them up. I would have mock-ups, like book mock-ups, so that the publishers can see very clearly. They understand, like you'd have all your process art, like where you do the composition studies and you do all these things and you work your way through it, right? So you would need at least 8 to 12 of those proving you can do this, right? And once you have them, you can start shopping it around. Now, this is the thing that's really important, is there's more to figuring out what you need than just that, but that's where it starts, right? So you start by saying, I need these 12 like illustrations, right, in this style. Then you have to start breaking that down, and you have to start saying, okay, what do I need to do to accomplish or to achieve getting all those 12 illustrations to be very, very good, right? Because we obviously know that art needs to be good. The better it is, the more it speaks for itself, and the easier it is for you to actually function as a professional and get work. If your work turns heads and people are just like wowed by it, then that's easy to market, is what I should say. So when you decide like what you need, like those 12 paintings, then you need to break down what you need to do to get those 12 paintings, right? And this is what my next point is, which is you need to follow it back. And what I mean by that is this: you need to go deeper into what's going to be required. This is when you're starting out. You're saying, okay, I want to be an illustrator, children's illustrator. I want to do these. I need to do these 12 paintings. Now, what do I need to do? What do I need to practice and learn to get to those 12 paintings, right? Then this is where it's tricky, and you need help. You can gather this information from a lot of different sources, but it is usually good to get some help here. But let's say you are a soccer player and you're out there and you're playing really good, but it's a 90-minute game, and in the last 20 minutes you're just running out of steam, right? Last 30 minutes you're running out of steam. Well, you might be a great player, but you're out of shape, right? So that's a real fundamental thing. Like if you're a soccer player, you have to be able to run like for 90 minutes, right? So you've got to go like address that, right? So that's an issue for you if you're a soccer player. That's a fundamental issue. You've got to follow it back and say, man, every time after 60 minutes, I get tired. And it's like, okay, well, we need to fix that, right? How do you fix that? Well, you go run. And then you ask your coach, you say, when I'm running for soccer, should I just run? Should I just do long distance, or should I do spurts, or should I do? And then the coach will say, well, you should do this. You should do this. There are people with whole programs dedicated to how to run and train. I'm sure, as a soccer player, right? Same thing as an artist. If you have composition, value, edges, you have to break it down and you have to say, what's the most fundamental exercise that I can do that will build up my skill set to do this? So in perspective, it's like drawing boxes, right? In space, like learning to turn form, it's drawing absolutely, or learning to draw anything from any angle is absolutely about turning simple forms in space, right? So you can say, okay, well, what should I do then? Okay, so I should do let me do 5 cubes a day and 5 cylinders, turning them in space. Like I want to do that every day. Okay, so I'll do that. That'll be that part. And again, this is when you start getting to the next step, which is what I wanted to talk to you about, which is creating a schedule. So we set a big goal. Let's go through what we've got. I've got them written right here. You define your goals. Then you pick a direction for those goals. You figure out what you need to do to get there. Then you follow it back to what is necessary to get there. Like you follow it back to the most fundamental part of that, right? You realize what those fundamentals are, and you say, I need to turn these shapes in space. I need to do this and that. And then you start creating a schedule to practice those things, okay? So this is where you would say, all right, I'm going to, create like a sheet, right? I use like an Excel sheet for mine. I use like an Excel sheet, and I have it based on priority and stuff like that. And then you say, okay, I want to do this for 10 minutes a day, and I want to do this for 15 minutes a day, and this is my warm-up, and this is what I do here. And then I draw, 15 boxes and turn them in space. I do this many ellipses to practice this. I do 2 composition studies a week. I also have this other class that I'm working on, like this class, that covers values or covers edges or whatever. Like you start breaking it down into a schedule, and you become very, very intentional with this. If you are a landscape painter and you want to be a landscape painter, you don't need to spend time learning anatomy if that's where you want to go. Now, is it okay to learn anatomy? Yes. Do you learn a ton, even if you're a landscape painter, from painting figures and stuff like that? Absolutely. Do I think you should avoid it 100%? No, you definitely shouldn't. But if you want a direct path to being a landscape painter, like you don't need a ton of anatomy. It's just not going to directly feed that goal, and you just need to know that. So it's fine if you do that. Do it. Like it's not going to hurt you as an artist, of course, but it will actually like deviate a bit from where you're going, and that's okay. Like some of those deviations that I've done over the years have actually yielded professional work later. When I started diving into Blender and doing some things in Blender, and I'm by no means an expert. When I started doing that, I did like a couple things, and then I was able to get jobs through that. And I still am doing jobs now in Blender sometimes just by the little things that I've done, because I had that artistic sensibility from all the other things I've done, and so it was easy to kind of do that. So there's room to do that. But again, if you want to make it as a professional, if you're starting out and you just want to be efficient and you really want to get there, you got to be targeted, and you have to do the fundamental exercises and create a schedule to practice the things that will get you there. So create that schedule, really lay it out. This is what I need to get there, and then get the advice of someone that knows what they're talking about. Say, this is my schedule. This is what I want to do every week. Is this going to get me there? And then they'll give you that advice, and then you can do the last step, which is actually do it and stick with it, which is the one that everybody messes up on the most. Trust me. Now listen, this is real important. When you make your schedule and when you'll see when you actually go to do it, whether it's realistic or not. When you actually go to sit down and do all these things, it might be too much, because you might say, well, I'm going to do 14 hours of drawing a day, and I'm just not going to sleep, and I'll, like this and that, and I'll do push-ups in between all the sets of ellipses, and you'll have all these things that you say you're going to do. And then it doesn't work, right? Because life comes in and kind of interrupts that. You want to do something that pushes yourself, of course, but you want to do something that's achievable. That's absolutely key, okay? It needs to be achievable. And so consistency, this is what I would say, consistency is much more important than like trying to get quantity, right? Trying to like load up your hours and say, I do 12 hours of art a day, right? And, consistency is way better over the long haul, because what will happen is you'll do those 12 hours of art and then you'll have 3 days where you don't do it because you're burnt out, right? Then you come back to it and you're sort of, somebody that does an hour or two a day and sticks with it over the course of a year, and then somebody like binges like a bunch and then doesn't do it for a long time, like you're going to see way more growth with the person that does it more consistently. And so choose something that's achievable. And this is why when you're really intentional and this is where I want to go and these are the things I need to practice, you can spend less time. You can make your time becomes much more efficient because you are so targeted with what you want to do. And I will tell you, one of the keys to sticking with it is not just doing it on your own. If you can get involved in a community, that is going to help you tremendously. And it just so happens that I'm starting my Patreon. This is going to be the first topic. I'm going to be breaking all this down. I'm going to be showing examples of what I do. I'm going to be talking about these things in detail. Each of these areas I'm going to break down and help people like define some of that and answer questions and stuff like that. And like I said, I'll give my examples and we're going to talk about that for a couple hours. And then I'm going to let people work on that through the month. I'm going to give them the challenge of setting up that schedule, doing it, then sticking to it. Then I'm going to answer some question and I'm going to have some question and answers at the end of the month that will help people like after they did it. I want them to see like what came up, like what was tough and what do you have questions about and things like that. But I would encourage you guys to look into that. Like it's a really small amount. It's just $1 to join the community on my Patreon. It's just $1. And so give this a shot. Let me go through them again. Define your goals, pick a direction, figure out, I've got them all written here. Figure out what you need to succeed, follow it back to the fundamentals, then create a schedule practicing all those fundamental things that you need, then stick with that schedule. And then that schedule will allow you to get better and better and better. And before you know it, you'll be good enough to do those works of art that you can start saying, okay, here's my portfolio. I'm going to spread this around. I'm going to see if I get any bites, right? And I'll tell you something. Anybody that's a professional knows in 2 seconds of looking at someone's portfolio whether you have spent time working on the fundamentals or not. We know instantly whether you have put the time and the work in. If you do this, it will show in your portfolio. If you do it over a long period of time and you're consistent, it will show. And a professional will see it instantly. There's a difference. Listen, this is the last thing I want to leave you with. I started drawing and painting when I was 21 and I sucked. Okay. And I'm going to show you a couple of images. I'm going to show you the before and after. Like, I'll show you 2 portraits, like the one I did early on when I was first starting, which is my like Napoleon Dynamite portrait where it's like shading on the upper lip. And then the portrait I did like 4 years later after training really hard, That's what I was able to achieve. And I posted all that on a site called conceptart.org. And I want to do a full video on that at some point, but my name on the forum there was Mind Candy Man, and so I did that, and it was hard. It was very difficult, right? But in those 4 years, I was able to get much better. You can do this. Everybody doubted what I was doing. Everybody thought I was nuts when I started to say I wanted to be an artist. And like I said, I started at 21. I had never done a thing, and so you can do it if you're organized, if you're dedicated, and if you go through these steps, you'll be able to make it. Let's go for it. Get in there. Get rocking, define where you want to go, and then go get it.